How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it breaking down all the latest key reporting in Mets land. This comes the day after the Mets finally secured themselves a series victory against the Seattle Mariners by a final score of 7-3. If you want to see more of my initial reactions and analysis to this past night's victory for the Mets, make sure to check out our post-game show that was live on the platform yesterday at the time this video first dropping out, August 18th, as well as you guys can check out the more condensed version there. That's just a couple minutes in the Bleacher Report app and on their website. Simply head over to the Mets, scroll down a little bit, and you're going to see me right there with my thumbnail breaking it down in a 2 to 3 minute format of the latest game that was for the Amazons. Make sure to check it out, because today, everybody, we're going to break down the key reporting having everything to do with David Stearns being not in the States, but rather there in Japan and in Korea, folks. He is scouting players for the upcoming offseason. I know some of you guys are saying to yourself, why is David Stearns doing this before the year's over? Trust me, every single front office GM and Popo does this throughout the course of the year, believe it or not. And we know that Stearns has obviously had plenty of connection with players, not only the NPB, but most certainly there in the KBO. So we're going to break down that latest reporting headline, as David Stearns was in attendance a couple days ago there in the NPB to see their so-called Aaron Judge of Japan and Munetaka Murakami, the absolute fantastic slugger from the left side that we're going to break down his entire game. What you need to know about him, the potential likelihood or unlikelihood of the Mets signing him, as he will inevitably be posted there from his club in Japan this offseason upcoming. From there, we're going to talk more on not only David Stearns, the way he's currently scouting across seas, but we're also going to get into more on the farm, as guys like Peña, the Mets' top IFA signing from this past year, has been balling out big time. We got to emphasize just how good he's been looking in the minor leagues, as well as guys like Jett and Carson Bench, who have had such a smooth transition there to AAA Syracuse. And there's no way that we can talk about AAA Syracuse without breaking down the dominance that was yet again Jonathan making his long-awaited, highly anticipated Syracuse Mets debut, which now begs the question, could we see Jonathan at the major league level sooner rather than later? That may in fact become a reality, everybody, so we're going to get into that along with so much else in Mets land. Paul Blackburn has officially been parted with by the club. We'll expand our further thoughts from there and everything else that we have to get into in this one. So sit back, relax, and get yourself ready for the ride, which is our latest Mets breakdown here on the WardyNYM platform. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on your way and tell me everything that you need to know here, folks, about not only David Stearns being in the market for Mr. Murakami, the fantastic slugger there from Japan, as well as everything else that we're going to emphasize, including our guy again in Jonathan. And of course, everybody, shout out to our amazing sponsors that make today's show happen. They're at SeatGeek, that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Simply utilize our promo code WARDY10. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase, whether it's Mets tickets, concert show tickets, NFL season right around the corner, you name it, SeatGeek has you covered. Utilize our promo code link down below. Thank you kindly for that, as well as our amazing friends there at Mumu, the official trading platform of the New York Mets, but we'll get into them later on in today's show. So let's begin today's conversation with none other than Mets president of baseball operations, David Stearns, going across seas to not only 10 games in the KBO, but as well as the NPB. Headline, as he, along with many other teams, have been scouting, yes, Munetaka Murakami. And this came over the past week, but the reason why we didn't talk about it on the platform until now is because no one wanted to talk any Mets baseball up until really this past weekend, because the Mets finally won a series for the first time in what feels like literally forever. When the Mets lost basically 2 weeks straight worth of games, the last thing I'm going to do is throw out some topics that I know are positive, because no one's going to care about them in that moment. That's why we have to wait for certain timing. This Mets off day at the time this video dropping was perfect for exactly that. So as we get into this, everybody, you guys see David Stearns there attending the NPB game, and what would happen in this game of Murakami, obviously the key player that they're watching. Well, folks, let me just show you how this ball game ended. Yeah, I mean, talk about a perfect game to attend. If you're David Stearns, you attend one game to watch Munetaka Murakami, and he hits an absolute bomb of a walk-off home run there for his club in the NPB, and that's how they win it. So talk about a first impression. Really doesn't get any better than that if you ask me. And if you guys have been following Murakami in his game, then you know that this is not at all surprising to see the Mets connected. We have seen the Mets actually connected to Murakami going back 2.5 years now to when Billy Epler first came in office for the Mets as their initial acting GM. And the reason for that is because Epler has long-lasting connections there in the NPB, which helped the Mets and their persuasion of bringing Kodai Senga to the Mets there for the 2023 season and beyond. But in case you guys don't know Murakami, let me enlighten you, because he is not only a tremendous slugger from the left side, but he's been labeled as many as, again, the left-hand hitting Japanese version of Judge. And I would like to make clear, as someone who loves wordplay, I think we got to pump the brakes just a little bit. I mean, they were throwing out Colin Jung-Hoo Lee there from the KBO, the Korean Tony Gwynn. And I like Jung-Hoo Lee plenty for the Giants, but miss me with the nonsense that he's in the same breath as Tony Gwynn's name. Never will be the case, and for rightful reason. But Murakami has been fantastic, so let's break down what has been so impressive about him and his game for the young power-hitting slugger from the left side. Because as you guys can see more of the highlights beside me right now, Murakami not only impressed to a degree that we saw in the World Baseball Classic, helping Team Japan win gold there in 2023 against Team USA. I will preface that in that series in particular, Murakami was kind of underwhelming. He wasn't the key standout Japanese batter, as was the case with guys like Shohei Ohtani and the other top pitchers there, Roki Sasaki, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and other key batters, headlined by, even to a degree there, that we saw from the St. Louis Cardinals organization. I'm unfortunately blanking on his name right now, and Mr. Lars Nootbaar, because he is technically, I believe he's at least half Japanese as well. Either way, Murakami, what you guys are getting in him, take a look at the following stat line from what he's done this season and throughout his career in Japan. The 25-year-old who profiles best as a DH, that goes without saying. In case you guys don't know Murakami's game, he's a subpar defender. Think of Mark Vientos when you're thinking of a guy at third base, just not a guy that's going to provide you consistency at all. So because of that reason, Murakami's likely going to profile best as a first base / DH type and at the major league level. And should that be the case, the Mets have room. Because I'm sorry, I think we can all agree, can we stop the nonsense with the platoon DH? I was on board with it for the first couple of years, even when we went through you-know-what and back in regards to the Daniel Vogelbacks, the Darren Ruffs of the world, etc. The Mets, since having a universal DH, have done nothing to take advantage of it when it comes to actual power implementation, which is exactly why I hope the Mets are in the market for a Kyle Schwarber this offseason, the same way that they're in the market for a younger, high upside and certainly exciting Murakami, who obviously profiles similar in the sense of the power and obviously a lot of upside at the young age of 25. But Murakami, everybody, you guys see there, he's expected to be posted from his team in the NPB for this upcoming offseason, which is why Stearns and other clubs are currently scouting him. But in 19 games so far in the NPB this season, 81 plate appearances, he has 11 runs scored, 7 home runs, 14 RBIs, a stolen bag, a 278 average, a 346 on base percentage, and a 625 slug. That slug, that power is exactly why Murakami is going to be such a hot commodity at this year's upcoming offseason. Now, we look at his career numbers, 855 games, just under 3,700 play appearances, a whopping 512 runs scored, 231 home runs, 614 RBIs, 56 stolen bags, a 270 average, a 394 on base, and a 552 slug. Good for, right around or close to 1,000 OPS. We're going to take that every single day of the week. When we expand more on Murakami in his game, everybody, this man has been a home run hitting phenom. If you look back to the 2024 season, 33 home runs. In 2023, 31. But the big breakout year for Murakami, which really put him on the map to everybody that was maybe unfamiliar with his game, was that rock-solid 2022 season. Played 141 games, 56 home runs in the process, a whopping 134 RBIs. This comes after a 39 home run and 112 RBI season in 2021 as a young, early 20-year-old, 21-year-old or so. So the guy's been dominating pretty much since he's gotten the taste of pro ball, going all the way back to 2019, mind you, when he was just a youngster there. I'm trying to do the math right now. What was he, 18, 19 years of age? He's probably 19 there in the 2019 season, turning 20. And my goodness gracious, even in that season, he had himself 36 home runs, 20 doubles, and 96 RBIs. Now I understand pitching in the NPB versus Major League Baseball is apples and oranges. They aren't the same thing. The universal belief from everything that I've learned covering not only Mets baseball, but Major League Baseball as a whole, and baseball in itself over the past couple of years, is that the common consensus is that the NPB level, talent-wise, is above AAA, but below MLB. So you think of, in that gap, basically think of like quad A type players. That's kind of the vibe that we're getting to a degree with what is happening there in Japan and the NPB. And they're very prideful, obviously, the Japanese players, and they're so meticulous about how they go about their game. We know that very well with a guy like Kodai Senga. But Murakami, why is he so appealing? Because that raw power from the left side is no joke. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room. Who are the other teams in the market for Murakami? Well, it feels like everybody and their mother, but the most notable ones are obviously the LA Dodgers, because God forbid, if they didn't have the entire country of Japan on their team, there would be a problem. It would be great if those schmucks, just for once, could back off from some great talent in Japan. But now the problem is, with everyone going from Japan to the Dodgers, more guys from Japan want to go to the Dodgers because there's more of a comfortability there than any other organization right now. And that's something that's out of the Mets' hands. Now we look at the big market aspect outside of the Dodgers. The New York Yankees have been long believed to be the favorite to land Murakami. There have been rumblings that Murakami is a Yanks fan, like grew up one, and he would love the idea of playing the pinstripes. So we're going to wait and see what happens. You know, this reminds me a lot of the Yoshinobu Yamamoto sweepstakes, when everyone thought that, oh, he has to be a Yankee. That they separated the number 18, the ace number, just for Yamamoto, just for him to say, yeah, no, I'm actually not even going to get close to your contract offer. I'm going to take the contract offer that Steve Cohen offered me and hand that to the Dodgers and see if they'll match it. And they did, and that's why he landed in LA, because if you're Yamamoto, why wouldn't you want to be teammates with Shohei Ohtani and all the other great talents there? That's something that, again, is out of the Mets' control, is out of the Yankees' control, so it is by no means a given for the Mets to land Murakami. But the reason why we're breaking him down today is because of the fact of how coveted of a bat he is and how much David Stearns is clearly infatuated with the guy to go out of his way to actually scout him there in Japan himself. And to see that walk off with his very eyes, I think can only bode well for Stearns' potential aggressiveness and going after the batter. And then you add in the fact that the Mets are clearly going to have an opportunity to upgrade their DH position this offseason. Starling Marte's gone in, coming back. The Mets are probably going to trade away Mark Vientos, barring changes. So you know that outside of their influx with their infielders and Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, not all of them are going to be back next season. I can guarantee you all the money in the world that the Mets are not going to run it back with all those same young players this time as we get to the 2026 spring training. Not a chance that it's going to happen, meaning there's going to be opportunity to arise for a player like your Murakami. Now, what will it take to land Murakami? That's something that we're going to have to wait and see. If it's going to come down to solely dollars, then obviously you'll have Steve Cohen's chances, but it's never going to be about just money for a guy coming over from the NPB in the peak prime of his career that could honestly rake for the next decade. Now, let's get into, we talk about the pros of Murakami, and there's a lot of them, especially with that huge power implementation. One of the best sluggers that we may see now getting to the major league level from the NPB in quite some time. But the counter and the cons with someone like Murakami is not only his lack of defensive upside, but also a guy that swings and misses at a tremendous rate. Murakami, the same way he's a great slugger, is the same way that he's a great strikeout man as well. So I fully anticipate once Murakami makes his MLB debut, gets adjusted next year, he's going to be striking out at a good rate. This is not a guy that you should be expecting to have this tremendous eye at the plate. If he does, awesome. We'll have to see to believe it. But there's a great reality where he's going to kind of get shell-shocked a bit at the major league level, the way that he was as underwhelming as he was to a degree in the WBC for Team Japan back in 2023, at least in spurts. So all I will say is Murakami, a lot of raw talent, a lot of potential here. But if the Mets do not land Murakami in the end, I do not think that we should be losing sleep of it as fans. And that's something that's kind of the contrary from what I typically say when I'm helping emphasize players that the Mets are scouting and going after in the off seasons. Usually I'm in favor of a lot of the guys they go after. I am with Murakami, but I know that there is a lot of key context here when I break down this player. I know that what he does in Japan is not at all luck of what he's going to do at the major league level. I see his bat. I look at how tremendous it is. I love that stance, the Japanese stance. They're all so wide out with their arms. They're doing their best, not only Ohtani impression, but even Matt Olson impression, right? Olson, you think of Matt, he's always like full extension with his arms, it feels like, and it crowds so much of the plate. It's menacing for the opposing pitchers as well. He can do serious damage, and I would love Murakami in Flushing, Queens, hitting tanks for the next 5 to 10 years. We'll have to see it to believe it, but folks, do know that he's absolutely not only on the Mets' radar, but we can anticipate to see the Mets in constant rumblings with Murakami plenty throughout the course of the offseason. It'll be very similar to the Sasaki, the Yamamoto, the Senga sweepstakes in the sense that the Mets are going to probably be in it up until the very end. Whether they let him or not is a different discussion, but they will be in that mix, and rightfully so. Let me know your thoughts about Murakami in the comments down below, everybody. If you are for or against the young phenom there from Japan to see what he can provide to any team at the major league level. But folks, we have plenty more to get into as we have to break down the continued dominance of Jonathan and other key takeaways there in the Mets minor leagues, as well as what's happening with guys like Paul Blackburn and among others. But before we do, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor once more here at Mumu, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. Folks, have you been seeing that big orange bowl that's making Mondays at Citi Field way more exciting? I'm talking about our amazing sponsor on the platform at Mumu. As the #1 Mets channel on YouTube, I absolutely love to break down stats, analysis, really getting into the nitty-gritty and numbers, and that is why I love so much Mumu, because they do exactly that with that same analytical approach when it comes to investing. It's a trading platform with professional grade tools and premium research that other companies usually charge a pretty hefty price for, all come for free when you sign up as a customer with Mumu. But folks, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And thanks to Mumu's partnership with our beloved New York Metropolitans, all Mumu customers can get free tickets to any and every Mets home game on a Monday throughout the course of the season. That's right, folks. Free baseball all season long for the greatest fan base in sports. Not to mention Mumu Millions. If the Mets pull off 100 wins this season, one lucky Mumu customer is going to come out winning $1 million. And what's nuts about this is that Mumu has already given away $10,000 when the Mets hit first 25 wins this season, as well as $20,000 when they hit the 50-win mark. And when the Mets inevitably hit 75 wins, they're giving away $30,000. But as much as they love baseball, Mumu's #1 priority is jump-starting your investing journey, which is why they're giving the WardyNYM community up to $1,000 in NVIDIA stock just for making a qualified deposit and becoming a Mumu customer. So folks, what are you waiting for? Head to start.mumu.com/Wardy, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description to join the Mumu community. Now, let's get back to our Mets. All right, folks, let's continue our discussion and actually talk briefly about David Stearns' continued efforts there that we have seen, not only the NPB, but also attending games there in the KBO. Because as you guys can see along with me right now, here's David Stearns smiling from the first time the Mets hired him, obviously. But what you'll see above is from Daniel Kim. Daniel Kim does a fantastic job there for Korean baseball coverage as well. He used to, if I'm not mistaken, work, obviously, to a degree that we've seen with not only MLB, ESPN in that range. He's done a very good job over the years. And Daniel Kim, going back to a couple days ago, reported the following: hearing that Mets Pobo David Stearns is in Korea and that he will be attending the next 2 games at the stadium that we saw. We'll be hosting the Dinos today as well as the Kia Tigers tomorrow. FYI, Stearns has the unofficial title of signing most players out of KBO. So I actually want to emphasize here the significance of David Stearns and his connection to Korean players, especially not just guys from the NPB, but you look at guys like Eric Thames. Remember him? Remember when he balled out when he came back to the bigs after being away overseas for a couple years when he signed with the Brewers? Yeah, that was David Stearns' doing, right? Then you also look at, let me get rid of the Murakami stats here, everybody. That's on me. Little error. My apologies. Jared Young, who's been raking in Syracuse for the Mets this year. Fantastic. Jared Young, a decent ball player when the Mets have called upon him at times, but, a fringe MLB player at best. Brandon Waddell, same kind of thing. Funny enough, both Brandon Waddell and Jared Young were actually teammates together there across seas before signing with the Mets that we saw entering the season. Brooks Raley is a very notable one as well. We can't forget that. Raley is a guy that has been fantastic, and while Stearns himself didn't have his hands on Raley with the Mets, if I'm not mistaken, Stearns had his hands on Raley going back to his time with the Houston Astros. Don't quote me on it, but I know that David started really his front office career really upticked as the assistant GM for the Astros in the mid-2010s, right around, I want to say, 2013, 2014 area. And if I'm not mistaken, Brooks Raley was a pitcher for multiple years in the Astros organization. So it is interesting to know those kind of connections, how they've continued. And I love Raley at this point. I hope he returns for next season. Everything's in line for that to happen. But what I'm trying to say, everybody, is that not only is he looking at guys there that we see in the NPB, but he's also looking at guys that we're seeing right now in the KBO, among others. And this is really, really exciting because there is a lot of potential there overseas. And listen, whether they amount to anything at the major league level or if they're more fringe AAA guys has yet to be seen, but we have seen them have previous success with some of these guys, with Eric Thames being the most notable. I think we could rightfully argue on the offensive front, and Brooks Raley being the most notable to a degree on the pitching front. But regardless, everybody, that is what we have for David Stearns. So now let's talk more on what is happening in Mets land when it comes to the kiddos, because there's one man that we are all frothy at the mouth. We want to see it happen. We want to see Jonathan get the call, and for a great reason, everybody, because as you guys and gals can see along with me, Jonathan was utterly dominant yet again this time in his latest, let's call it, yes, the Syracuse Mets debut. Jonah, cannot say enough great things about him and his game. He got called up to the Syracuse Mets over the past week or so when he had a sub-2 ERA in Double-A, has more strikeouts than any other pitcher in all the minor leagues this year, not just Double-A. Ton and his Syracuse Mets debut goes 5.2 shutty, 3 walks, 3 hits, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, 90 pitches, and yes, he topped out 98 on the gun. To say that he was impressive is an understatement. He had 59 strikes out of those 90 pitches. It's not a matter of if, but when the Mets call up Jonathan. What will happen before the season's end? Well, folks, Tong is in a great position where he very well can force his hand here. If he continues to have another rock-solid start, 2 or 3 for Syracuse, there is a true reality that the Mets may consider calling him up before the season's end. And what Tong just did, guys, just for some context, is as good of an outing as Brandon Sproat has ever had in AAA Syracuse, going back to when Sproat moved up to Syracuse towards the end of last season. So for Tong to basically one-up Sproat and his first ever outing in Syracuse gives me similar vibes to Noah McLean in the sense that as long as Tong stays consistent, he's inevitably going to be with the Mets, and it may very well happen as soon as this season. When we think of September call-ups, especially when you think of how desperate the Mets are for quality in their rotation, not just length, but quality. If you're not going to give us more than 5 innings or so, you got to make sure that you're quality in doing so. And Tong has some of the nasty stuff that we're seeing in all of minor league baseball right now. He is jaw-droppingly good, is what we're seeing from Tong. And this is not an exaggeration either, everybody. If we expand more on Tong and his game, I mean, just take a look at this. This was from, again, his first Syracuse Mets outing. And shout out Pitch Profiler for the graphic here. We really appreciate that. He was 11% above league average on his four-seam fastball. He was right around league average there on his changeup and his curveball, and he was above league average on his slider. Buddy is disgustingly good. Then we take a look at this, guys. Look at this. This is his release point of all his different 4 pitches. Guys, I'm sorry, this is giving me DeGrom vibes. I know it's not as elite as Jake, because Jake will have it all in the exact same spot, and they'll all be different pitches, but Tong to be this concise, this good, this controlled, and this dominant, this early in his career, guys, how can you not be excited as a Mets fan? Jonathan has quickly risen now to arguably the best pitching prospect in Major League Baseball. Again, when you strike out more guys than anyone else in the minors total, going from single A all the way up to triple A, you're doing something right. And Tong has had a fantastic charismatic personality. He's been a very outgoing personality that we've seen. I've been loving the interviews that I've seen him do there for the Mets and on respective platforms this season. So I'm loving everything about Jonathan. I'm sure you guys are as well. So let me know your continued thoughts in the comments down below. Not only Tong's brilliant first outing in Syracuse, but ultimately, when do you expect to see Jonathan actually crack the major league level? I would love to hear your thoughts, and thank you guys kindly for exactly that. Because as we continue our conversation, everybody, let's continue the trend of talking about prospects to a degree, because a pitcher that I want to emphasize I haven't talked about nearly enough the past month. We did in the first half of the season a lot, and then when the Mets really started their losing ways, I was kind of sidetracked and didn't emphasize the prospect coverage as much. That's why we're emphasizing that a lot more now going forward. And a guy who stood out all year long has been Jack Weniger. Look at this man. Just a couple days ago, Weniger goes 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts for the Rumble Ponies. Here we're talking about Brandon Sproat, Jonathan, Noah McLean. Guys, don't forget on the Jack Wenigers. Don't forget when healthy, the dominant Southpaws and the Zach Thorntons, the Jonathan Santucci's. The list goes on and on. The Mets have such an abundance of great young pitching talent in their farm right now. Weniger is just one of many pieces of the puzzle right now. Weniger currently has a 2.7 ERA thus far that we've seen in the Mets minor leagues. Again, another fantastic young dominant arm that's made proper adjustments this year in the Mets pitching lab for the better. So that's what you have there in Weniger, everybody. But he wasn't the only standout, because we also did see another huge standout, and that is Mr. Elian Peña. Shout out to my guy Joe DeMeo there for this. I was trying to find highlights of Elian Peña, but I really couldn't find any. They're kind of tough to find in the DSL league, but if I find more in the coming days, I'll relay them on the platform. Elian Peña, who's a top 5, if not top 7 prospect in the Mets farm. Joe of SNY currently has him as 7. I would put Peña in top 5 already. There's a reason why he was signed to the largest Mets IFA bonus in team history at over $5 million going back to this past January, and that's because the kid has all the potential in the world to be something really special and could crack the major league level potentially early in his career. Maybe not to the degree of a Juan Soto at the age of 19, but he very well could get here by the age of 20. It really is not out of the realm of possibility. That's how talented this kid is. And today, he did something that he did already once this season, and that is hit 3 home runs in 1 effing game. Talk about good. Step right up and meet Elian Peña, the fantastic infield prospect with the New York Mets. He went 4 for 5 today with 3 runs scored, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs. He's looked so good. And as Joe relays here, he started off really poor to begin his DSL pro career, but after beginning 0 for 26, he's now been slashing a 351 average, a 467 on base, and a 635 slug. Good for over 1,000 OPS there with 13 doubles, 9 home runs, 32 RBIs, a 32 to 26 walk to K ratio in just 45 games. Ellie Peña, so happy to see the development he's having, who's already light years ahead in the development that we're seeing versus the previous IFA signings, especially the Simone Juans or if I'm not mistaken, Anthony Fanas, who actually I believe the Mets Willie Fanas, I believe that's his name. They actually just outrighted and dropped him over the past couple weeks from the organization already. So we know that there's some other top IFA guys the Mets signed in recent years, including the other catching prospect, if I'm not mistaken, the Venezuelan Giovanni Rodriguez, among others. So this is great to see what Ellie Peña. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him and what he can do there in the Mets minor leagues. But he's not the only one that's been looking good in the minor leagues, as you guys are going to see right here with me. Who's been looking good as well? Jett the Met. That's who, everybody. Let's take a look and appreciate Jett Williams right here, everybody. And he absolutely ropes a triple that we would see. You love to see it. And he would be driven in the highlights that used to be beside me from Ryan Clifford. Him and Clifford were both called up there to AAA Syracuse, as was the case with Carson Benj as well. Benj, Clifford, and Jett have all been looking solid in Syracuse. Clifford not as much as Jett, or not as much as Carson, and Carson Benj unfortunately was just placed on the 7-day injured list in the minor leagues, which really upsets me because Benj is so good. I think Benj has potential to be more major league ready than any other bat that the Mets currently have in AAA right now. That's how bullish I am on him. Benj has been amazing. The Mets top draft pick from OSU a year ago there, the first round pick under the David Stearns tenure, and yeah, I'm loving every single thing about it. But I'm loving Jett Williams too, and Jett has been looking fantastic all year long. And when we expand more on Jett Williams and his game, everybody, let's just take a look at the numbers along with me right now. Because so far this season, what we have seen for Jett Williams, again, 96 games there in AA, had himself a total of a 281 average, 390 on base, 477 slug, 867 OPS, a whopping 10 home runs, 37 RBIs, 62 walks, but yes, 32 stolen bags. Now, in just 6 games so far for AAA Syracuse, he has himself a 348 average, a 400 on base, and over 1,000 on the OPS total, 1 home run there, and has himself yet to record a stolen base. So great early look there from Mr. Jett Williams. Carson Benj is batting around 250, and he's not going to be playing for the next week or so, but that's okay. There's still been a lot of positives on the front of everyone in the minor leagues that we have seen for the most part. A lot of good, and be on the lookout because we're going to be breaking down a lot more on the minor league front on the platform in the coming days, like we typically do, regardless of our post-game content that we do separate. That's in our live portion of the WardyNYM platform. But as we continue on here with the prospects, everybody, I believe that's what I have for you. I don't think I have anything else that's notable that I really want to get into in this one. Jonathan's looked fantastic. Yeah, that's about it. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for being as much of a stud as you've been. I look forward to watching you and more of your game here. And the final thing that I have to relay for each and every one of you should be as follows right here, right now. Paul Blackburn's time with the Mets has officially come to an end. As we know, the Mets DFA'd Paul Blackburn to make room for Noel McLean a couple days ago. This was after Blackburn won 5 rock-solid innings and saved the Mets bullpen a couple days ago in a defeat, unfortunately. But at the same time, Blackburn, we knew he likely wasn't going to be staying, and he has officially been put on for outright waivers. So basically what's happening, unconditional waivers rather. So the Mets requested that, so they're done with him. That's what this is. So now, to conclude his Mets tenure, which has been a year now since the Mets trade for him, he only has 12 games, 9 starts, 48 innings pitched, a 6-year rate, and a 1.6 whip. Without a doubt, the most notable, or one of the most notable misses of an acquisition that David Stearns has made, especially for this rotation since becoming Pobo. When you think about it, Stearns has honestly swung and missed more than he has actually hit when it comes to acquiring starters. If we go back to the start of the 2024 season for the Mets, they had a lot of retreads, but among those retreads, they had Luis Severino, who worked out brilliantly. He deserves a lot of credit there, but Adrian Hauser, batting practice, dog water, horrendous. He was great for the White Sox this year. Why? Because he didn't have any pressure playing for one of the worst teams, if not the worst team, Major League Baseball. Very contrasting from playing in New York with the media and a fan base that's going to let you know exactly how bad you are every single time that you serve up meatballs for batting practice and your latest start. So Paul Blackburn, Adrian Hauser, Frankie Montas, what do those three have in common? They've all been garbage for the Mets. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is the reality. So Blackburn, unfortunately, dealt with a lot of bad injuries right away. He had a spinal fluid leak, which was so bizarre that derailed his tenure slightly in the 2024 season after the Mets trade for him. So when you look at that, as well as all the injuries that he endured this year, Blackburn's way out was inevitably happening for the Mets. The Mets shopped him a lot at this year's trade deadline as well. They were trying trying everything, all means necessary to get this man out of the organization. Now it's officially happening. So, Paul, I'm wishing you the absolute best in your future endeavors. It's unfortunate that it did not work out here in Queens, but the good news, at least, is that what the Mets gave up for Paul Blackburn was a pitching prospect that they drafted in the third round in 2023 by the name of Cade Morris. Cade Morris, for those that are unaware, is currently in AAA for the A's organization and has a 4.76 ERA or so. So, yeah, I don't think the Mets are losing any sleep over that trade. The only thing that they should have done differently was never trade for Paul Blackburn in the first place. Out of any depth starter that they could have landed, they landed one of the worst imaginable, and it fell flat on its face basically from the time it started. So, more work that David Stearns needs to do there as he evaluates players heading in the offseason. Maybe let's stop going for some of these reclamation projects and these back-end options, try and make them more than what they are. Let's find a healthy balance of doing that to a certain degree while making sure that we're properly allocating for other parts of the rotation. The good news for us Mets fans is that when it comes to the rotation, the Mets have guys under contract. Unfortunately, they have Frankie Montas for next season as of now, but you still have Sean Manaea, you still have David Pearson, you still have Kodai Senga, and then you still have Clay Holmes if you still want to utilize him there. But then you have the four horsemen, the kids, which is so exciting. Because you have Noah McLean, who ain't going anywhere right now. Man, is he looking fantastic, right? You get Brandon Sproat, who will probably be in this rotation sooner rather than later. You get Jonathan, same exact thing. And Christian Scott. Can't forget Christian Scott, guys. He was one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, with the exception of Paul Skeens, up until he got called up by the Mets last year. Was batting practice his second or third turn in the order every single time, because he was just serving up a meatball. Like, every single time Scott got in the groove, he then gave up a home run before he exited his outing. Had a partially torn UCL that was pushed for over a year. Had a reconstructive Tommy John surgery the past year. He's been looking fantastic as well. In case you guys are unaware, everything is looking great for Christian Scott and his rehab. What I've heard as of late is that he's been pitching bullpens. They've been going clean, smooth. Everything's looked good there, and he's fully destined in the line to compete for a Mets rotation spot heading into 2026. So great news in regards to Scott and his health. Love to see that. But furthermore, the Mets already have an abundance of pitching depth heading into 2026 alone, between their in-house options of guys currently on the roster, as well as guys that are in the minor leagues that are on the cusp of making their MLB debut. What the Mets do rotation-wise outside that has yet to be seen, but it is comforting knowing that heading into 2026, it's a lot less question marks and a lot more certainty in what we know at minimum what the Mets have in their organization as they head into that season. But folks, that's all I got for you. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know all your key thoughts and takeaways in the comments down below. Your thoughts on not only David Stearns scouting guys like Munetaka Murakami, if you're for or against him, if you think it's going to happen or not, those kind of things, as well as what's happening with other top prospects there, Ellie and Peña, Jett Williams, Jonathan, most notably in this conversation, and everyone else in between. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Be on the lookout for more consistent coverage all season, off season, playoff long, covering the New York Mets here on WardyNYM. This is your guy Tyler signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks.